It's 40,000 BC. You're standing at the edge of a river somewhere in East Africa. You're exhausted. You've been walking for 3 days. The last thing you ate was half a rabbit, and that was yesterday. And then you look down. The water is shallow and clear, and there are fish in it, dozens of them, just sitting there. And you think the most ancient thought in human history. How do I get those? The obvious answer is, someone figured it out. Someone smart, at some point in history, invented fishing and taught everyone else. And here's what makes that answer completely wrong. Fishing wasn't invented, it evolved. Over nearly 2 million years, in dozens of different places, by dozens of different species of human, some of whom weren't even fully human yet. The story of how humans learned to fish is actually the story of how human intelligence itself developed. Which sounds like a lot, but let's start with someone standing at the edge of a river, staring at a fish. The earliest evidence of humans catching fish doesn't come from modern humans at all. It comes from Homo habilis, handyman, a species that lived in East Africa between 1.9 million and 800,000 years ago. Brain about half the size of yours, no language, no tools worth mentioning, and yet. Archaeologists excavating sites in East Turkana, Kenya, found fish bones in the same ancient garbage heaps as Homo habilis remains, dated to 1.95 million years ago. No hooks, no nets, no spears, just hands. The current best theory is that early hominins waded into shallow water and grabbed fish when they were concentrated in pools or during dry seasons when rivers shrank. It wasn't clever, it was desperate. They ate what they could reach. But it worked, and it changed what humans ate, and what you eat changes your brain. Here's where the story gets genuinely interesting. Fish, specifically fatty fish, are loaded with omega-3 fatty acids, DHA, and protein. These are the specific nutrients that fuel brain development. The human brain is roughly 60% fat, and a significant portion of that fat comes from exactly the kind of food you find in rivers and coastlines. Some researchers have proposed something called the aquatic ape theory, the idea that early human intelligence didn't develop on the savanna chasing antelope. It developed at the coast and at rivers, eating shellfish and fish, slowly building the kind of brain that could eventually build a hook. The evidence isn't conclusive, but here's what we do know. 160,000 years ago, in Blombos Cave on the southern coast of South Africa, early modern humans were eating shellfish. Mussels, abalone, whelks, systematically, seasonally, over thousands of years. They weren't scavenging, they were returning to the same spots at the same time of year. That requires memory, planning, the beginnings of something that would eventually become technology. Actual fishing, actively catching fish rather than grabbing them or collecting shellfish, seems to have started with spears. Not fishing spears specifically, just spears. The same wooden spears humans used to hunt deer and antelope turned toward water. Stand on a riverbank, wait, see a fish, throw. 90,000 years ago in southern Africa, there are burial mounds containing harpoon points, sharpened bone tools with backward-facing barbs, alongside fish bones and terrestrial animal remains. These weren't fishing rods, but they were purpose-built for piercing and holding a fish underwater without it slipping off. That's engineering. That's someone thinking, the fish kept getting away, so I added this piece, and now it doesn't. That gap between, I can see a fish, and I need a backwards-pointing barb to hold it, is the gap between instinct and invention. For a long time, archaeologists thought fishhooks were relatively recent, maybe 12,000 years old at most. Then someone excavated a cave in East Timor called Jerimalai. Inside, they found over 38,000 fish bones. From 2,843 individual fish, including tuna, sharks, rays, and parrotfish, and 2 broken fishhooks carved from sea snail shells dated to between 23,000 and 16,000 years ago. These are the oldest fishhooks ever found. But here's the part that still amazes researchers. Tuna are pelagic fish. They don't swim near the shore. They live in deep, open ocean water. To catch a tuna 23,000 years ago, you needed a hook, a line, a boat, and the knowledge of where in the open ocean to look. Sandra Boldler, an archaeologist at the University of Western Australia, put it plainly. The people of Jerimalai had fully formed fishing skills, not primitive beginnings, a complete, sophisticated system, which means somewhere between Homo habilis grabbing fish with his bare hands and these shell hooks in East Timor, someone, or rather thousands of someones over thousands of years, had figured out the whole thing. The hook solved one problem: how to catch a fish you can see. The net solved a different one: how to catch fish you can't see. The oldest evidence of fishing nets comes from a cave site in Korea, where limestone sinkers, small stones with carved grooves so they could be tied to the bottom of a net, were found dating to around 27,000 years ago. Net sinkers are a remarkable piece of evidence because the net itself never survived. Nets made of plant fiber or animal gut don't last 27,000 years, but the rocks tied to the bottom, those last forever. So archaeologists find the anchors of nets from 27,000 years ago. The nets themselves are gone. But the fact that someone carved specific grooves into specific stones to tie them to the bottom edge of a net, that tells you everything about how sophisticated the thinking had become. You can't see this net existing without imagining the entire system around it. The fibers twisted and knotted, the weights tied at intervals, the floats along the top edge, the knowledge of where to drag it, when, in which season. This isn't survival anymore. This is industry. So when did ancient humans discover fishing? The answer depends on what you mean by fishing. If you mean, when did something shaped like a human grab something shaped like a fish out of water for the first time? Probably close to 2 million years ago, by a hominid that would barely recognize you as a relative. If you mean, when did modern humans develop the complete, sophisticated fishing technology we still recognize today? Hooks, lines, nets, boats, knowledge of fish migration and season and depth? By 40,000 years ago, possibly earlier. Which means fishing is not something humans invented, it is something humans became. Slowly, over almost 2 million years, each generation adding one small thing: a barb, a hook, a stone tied to a rope, to what the last generation figured out. The fish in that river 40,000 BC didn't change. The thing looking down at them did. Did ancient humans have a favorite fish? The answer, based on the bones they left behind, might surprise you. Leave your guess in the comments.